On this week's show, discussing APIs in construction from the MEP Innovation Conference with Jeff Peterson from P1 Group. All right. Well, I've got a little bit of a different look today. I've got Sean McGuire joining me in the co-host seat today.
Howdy.
How you doing, Mr. McGuire?
Doing pretty well. I feel like I should say howdy because this is like, just for old time's sake and the fact that we just got back from Texas.
We got back from Texas. Throwback to the ConTech crew. The crew chief himself, James Benham, always gives a howdy if you've ever been to any of his talks. And then he always does it a second time like any of us would, right? So that's a throwback to you, James, if you're listening in. Jeff Peterson, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to be here today.
We're excited to have you, man. You are a historical story for the ConTech crew and the MEP Innovation event. So excited to have you on.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Well, we are going to get deep. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to talk about APIs. We're going to talk about being a construction technologist. But before we do, remember the cause of this show: prevent construction suicide.
It's important everyone supports a culture of well-being in the field and is equipped with the tools to help prevent suicide in construction. Procore Safety Qualified courses were built in partnership with our customers, elevating enhancements to their standard OSHA training. And the Bringing the Right Mindset series equips individuals and leaders alike with the skills necessary to really build resilient teams. We've made these 3 courses available for free and on demand, and they're offered both in English as well as Spanish, and they are CEU certifiable. Procore.com/certified-qualified is where we host our Procore's learning portal, and anyone can use their Procore credentials or create a free account to get started.
And we're back. All right, Jeff, let's get into the topics of it. First of all, I'm going to pat ourselves on the back here at the ConTech crew. You have a pretty cool history that we want to get you up to, but it started before then, and we got to hear a little bit about it at the MEP Innovations. But for those who weren't there, give us a little backstory about, construction goes beyond just college or anything for you, or just some thought, right? This is part of your life in the past.
Yeah. Like I kind of shared at the conference, I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, and a single mom, and I really didn't have anybody in my life at all that was really, influenced me for construction or anything like that. My mom was a programmer and my dad was a doctor, and, growing up in elementary school, it actually kind of started. I just didn't like the color of my room. And here I was, this young kid in elementary school growing up with a single mom, and it's like, hey, Mom, can I paint my room? And she was like, sure, let me at a really young age. And, I painted my room, and I just loved the feeling of, seeing what I'd done, the accomplishment, and seeing the ability to change that. And it just got a hold of me from a young age. So I started painting all the rest of our house. And then I started asking myself, well, what else can I do? And what else can I learn? And started buying tools, and that really got a hold of me. But when it really started getting a hold of me was then when I got into middle school and high school. I got really close with my shop teachers in middle school and high school, and specifically my shop teacher in high school. He really influenced me a lot, and we became good friends. He was an older guy, kind of a real mentor, and he got me my first job when I could finally drive and get a job in construction, drywalling houses in high school, and then also framing houses in high school and building houses. And I loved doing that, but the problem was I never saw myself doing that after high school. I thought it was one of those high school jobs, that you did, and just always thought maybe it would just be a hobby, but I never saw myself doing it as a career when I graduated. And so it was about my junior year. I was trying to ask myself, what I wanted to go to college for, what I wanted to do, and what kind of career I wanted to do. And I took one of those placement exams, and wrote down all my interests. And I was a pretty decent student, and I really liked math and science, especially liked math. And I took one of those exams, and it came back with 3 of my top items were being an accountant, being an actuary, or being an engineer. And honestly, at that time, I didn't know what 2 of those meant. I had to actually go out on the internet. Actually, the internet wasn't there, but I had to look it up and figure out, what the heck is an actuary and what is an engineer. I honestly thought that an engineer, when I got that back, was a guy who drove trains, and I was like, I had no idea what even engineering was in high school, and I had to look it up. And when I looked it up, I was like, man, engineering, that's it. That's exactly what I want to do when I grow up. It was math, it had some sort of building and stuff like that. So I tried to figure out, where are the best engineering schools, and I was from, Nebraska, and I narrowed it down to Kansas State and Iowa State. And so anyways, my dad and I went down and visited Kansas State, and we were looking at the civil engineering program there. And we talked with the department head there, and the thing was, it just didn't really like click to me. I was like, this would be good, this would be great, but it didn't really completely resonate with me. And my dad and I were walking down the hallway, and we looked over and we saw this sign, and it said Department of Architectural Engineering and Construction Science, and it pointed upstairs. And we're like, construction science and management, what is that? I mean, I had not even heard of that major before ever, So my dad was like, hey, let's go check it out. So we went upstairs and walked into the department office and introduced ourselves, and the department head made some time to take us out for lunch and explain to us a program. And he ended up being just an amazing guy, became a really close friend of the family, and explained to us. And I was like, that's when I just knew that that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, because I had no idea that you could, study construction in school and engineering and do all that. And I was just super pumped and super excited about it. And like I said, that department head became a real close friend of the family, a mentor. And so I ended up going to K-State in construction science and management, architectural engineering, and throughout college, did internships every summer with mostly all general contractors. And I was real fortunate during that time to get a lot of different internships, and loved doing them. And I always envisioned myself, working for a general contractor, and I always thought, they kind of groomed you in school for working and going to school for general contractors or construction managers and stuff like that.
They do groom you.
Yeah, they do groom you to that. But what happened was, I think it was my senior year or my junior year. I had a job. I'd done, different internships for companies like J.E. Dunn and other general contractors and stuff like that. Well, I had this internship lined up with this smaller general contractor this summer, and had it all lined up. And here it was, the end of April, and I got a call from the guy who recruited me, and he informed me that they were going to be filing for bankruptcy. And here I was like, oh my goodness, I don't have an internship this summer. What am I going to do? And about that time, this department head, this guy that was my mentor at K-State, just an amazing guy, came into our MEP estimating class on a Thursday morning at 7 a.m. And he was a guy to tell you how it is. And he was all upset. And he was like, no one signed up to interview with this company. He goes, why won't someone go and interview with this mechanical contractor that came here to find someone to work for them? All you guys want to work for general contractors. You guys need to go interview for this company. And so since he was such a close friend of mine, I went in and interviewed with him. And well, about that time when that general contractor called me up and said they had filed for bankruptcy, that contractor ended up calling me and said, hey, we couldn't find anyone full time. Would you be interested in coming on as an intern? And I was like, well, I don't have anything else lined up for this summer. And so I did. Well, that company ended up being A.D. Jacobson, which is now P1 Group. And so here I am 20 years later, still in the industry. I went to work for this specialty contractor, and I loved it. And really loved just, being able to manage your own crews, being able to see your work installed. And it just really resonated with me. But after school, I ended up going out to work for a general contractor for a short stint out in the Bay Area during the .com boom. But but Kansas City kept calling my name back, and I ended up moving back to Kansas City, rejoined on here with what was A.D. Jacobson at the time, now as P1 Group, and been here for like 20 years. So
I guess A.D. Jacobson got taken on by P1 Group, right?
Well, no, actually we merged with Huxtable and Associates out of Lawrence, and also U.S. Electrical, the electrical arm, and we were all underneath a holding company for a while. And then in 2007, we rebranded and basically rebranded as P1 Group, and we've been P1 Group ever since. So
yeah, and Smitty Belcher, who was I'm old enough to remember when he was the MCA president at the time. He was the first guy who was the president, and he remains probably the classiest guy I think I've met in this whole industry. So it's a great company to go work for.
Yeah, it really is a great company.
See, now I think you're missing the moral of the story here, though. I heard the moral of the story is that you have the shop teacher, So the first mentor. So we indoctrinated you into the trades before those GCs could get a hold of you. And I think there's some moral to the story that when you're looking for the future, that the trades are out there as the true landing spot. Once they get a hold of you, they won't let you go. You tried to leave for a little bit, but you came back. At least that was my moral of the story for your history there, Jeff.
Yeah. I mean, it's, the trades are it is really a great industry to be involved with. I mean, you kind of, like you said, in college, you're kind of groomed to work for a general contractor or construction manager. And man, I love construction management and general contracting, but in the trades, you're actually working with your guys, your guys out in the field. You're working right alongside those tradesmen. If you are a tradesman, or if you're a PM or an estimator, and it's just really great working side by side with those guys. They're actually installing the work.
I think that, I mean, all kidding aside, I think that goes back to, painting the room and seeing it transform, right? It changed your environment when you painted the room. It changed the environment of the house when you did it. So, and we've always talked about this on the show, is that, that's that core DNA switch that most people who enter into construction in general, but really the trades, feel like it's just a draw that just sits there. And so now you're talking about, when you're putting up pipe in place and watching your work come to fruition, it's even more tangible, right? That's something a lot of people don't get to take home. Accounting, you don't take the numbers home and if you print your spreadsheets and put them on the wall, maybe, but you just don't bring that stuff home, right?
It's funny. It reminds me of like an internship I took when I was in college. When I was talking to for an engineering internship, one of the seniors who was coming out about to go in the job market. They were trying to figure out what was the best fit for them going in and out, and they said for them, the most satisfaction they got out of their job was being able to both use their hands and use their brains. And it's kind of hard to find a job that really kind of blends both of them. So at the end of the day, you can show something you've actually worked on, you've actually done, or you actually performed, or you built, but also you're using your brain to kind of figure out how to kind of make it work the right way, improve the process, or just the best way to kind of get it done.
So I think that speaks to your experience. But now I want to take you through kind of the progression of the company, because that's something that I don't think we talk about enough. Is, you progressed up through some of the normal things, project manager, then estimator, but you've created sort of a new path for yourself. So tell us a little bit about, when you skewed off the path and how you ended up where you are today.
Yeah. So, I started out of the company as a project engineer, straight out of school. And the thing that I loved about, especially like at P1 Group and at A.D. Jacobson, especially contractor, being a little smaller, you're given a lot more responsibilities. You kind of, learn by fire, and you're able to, back then we were estimating, managing, taking our projects from cradle to grave. And, but as we grew, the projects grew, and as you have larger projects, the less that, you can do all those things. And so we realized we needed to start a central estimating department. And, as much as I love project management and doing that, I realized that I really missed like the technology aspect of things. I wanted to do something more with the tech and construction. But at that time, there really wasn't a role like that. And the only options back then were either to go into VDC or go into estimating. And a lot of our VDC guys were coming out of the field. A lot of the guys that were drafting and drawing were the guys who had piping experience, and I didn't have any of that. But I love numbers, and I love crunching the numbers, and I love working with software. So I ended up going to into full-time estimating. And I worked in estimating for 8 years as we grew our central estimating department from one person. I think now we're up to like 20 central estimators now. And when we've grown that department, but as we grew that department, we realized that we were really outgrowing our software that we were in as well. We were taking off things, with the on-screen software, but then we would pull things out of the software, the calculations, and we put them into an Excel spreadsheet. And that was kind of a recipe for disaster. We had these Excel spreadsheets like everywhere, and there wasn't a centralized source for it, a centralized source of truth. And we realized as we had grown that we had really outgrown that system, and we needed a better and a more robust system. And so we invested heavily in an enterprise software suite from Trimble. And when we decided to implement that, by the time we had grown to multiple offices, instead of one office, now we had 5 different offices in different states all over the place. And we wanted to bring all those people together into one central source of truth for our estimating software. And so we implemented this software, and it was a pretty big implementation. It took when you buy those pieces of software, it's not like you can just take it off the shelf, roll it out, and give it to people. There's a huge implementation process of thinking that out, of how you're going to roll that out with your company. And so we realized we had to dedicate someone to implementing that. And given my history and knowledge, I took on that role of implementing that software throughout our company and trying to implementing it, and then training people and rolling it out and getting the buy-in from everybody. And it was
Jeff, this is
that software. Oh, go ahead. Were you say something, Sean?
I'm sorry, this is super inside baseball, but when you're doing this back in the day of the estimating software, this is back when we had the red labor estimating manuals that you had to basically refer to every single time you wanted to figure out how much time it was going to take to estimate a 3/4 inch copper joint or something like that. So the first Trimble software, did it actually incorporate all the labor rates that you could use and then apply your factors to?
Yeah, it had everything incorporated in it. We're still using this software today. This was probably about 8 years ago. But yeah, and it has on-screen takeoff, but the great thing about this software was that everything is housed inside of a database. You never leave. Once you do all your takeoff in the software, but then you do all your recap, your extensions, you even write your quote letter in the software. So it's all centralized inside of a database. And then that database is the same shared database that all your offices are using. There's just one central source of truth. So when we were implementing that, there were so many different other options. And a lot of times, contractors, when they buy a software like that, they may usually only implement 40 or 50, sometimes 60% of the features that are available in that. And we try to really try to push and use all the features that we can use in that software. And as we were pushing and looking and asking what it could do, we kept on discovering more and more missed opportunities and things where we needed to integrate our estimating department with our other with our other parts of our business, like accounting and budgeting and stuff like that. And we started coming up with more and more ideas of how we could automate that workflow from estimating into project management into budgeting. And as we just kept on just uncovering, it was like peeling off an orange, just all of these different layers of things we could do, and these projects and the scope just kept on growing and growing. It was like, who's going to man all this work and trying to build all these integrations and do it? We were asking ourselves this, and about that time when that was all going on, I got a mass email, or one of the emails from the MCAA, the newsletter, and they talked about this. Construction technology report and JB knowledge and construction technology, and it just got my attention. I was like, what is that? And so I subscribed. So I clicked on the link, and it took me to the JB Knowledge website and the ConTech trio, and I realized they had a podcast about this stuff, and I was like, wow, I've never heard of a podcast about construction and technology. This was back in end of 2016 when they just started the podcast. And I was like, that's pretty cool. But you get so busy, you never really take time to listen to that stuff. And so I put it in my to-dos. Sometime I'm gonna listen to that podcast, And so it was about 3 months later, I got really sick. My kids got me sick, and I was throwing up on the couch. I couldn't do anything else. And I was like, what am I gonna do? And I remembered that podcast. I was like, this is a good time to listen to that podcast. So I queued it up, and there had just been a guy on from Innate, from Peter Kiewit. And being from Omaha, I knew all about Peter Kiewit, and I was like, well, that's pretty interesting. And listening to this, it was a CEO from Innate, and he was talking about the innovation culture that they had there at Kiewit, and about how they had launched this Innate, the Innate software out of Kiewit. And just everything that he was talking about, just resonated with me. And I was just completely blown away. That podcast just opened up my world and my ideas and just really resonated with me. I'd always just loved technology and just wanted to be, do more and more of it. And at the same time, we were looking at all these ideas and they were talking about, having someone who at your company who's just solely focused on, has a construction background, but solely focused on implementing and looking for technologies and integrations to your company. So I actually took that podcast and I wrote down a couple of the clips from it, and went and talked with the president and the vice president, one of the vice presidents from our company, and showed them those clips and said, what if we created a position like this? And I laid out all of our ideas of some of the things we could do, and that's where the position was born. That's one of the great things about P1 Group. If you're passionate about something, if you really have vision, there's always the opportunity to do something new, to do what you're passionate for, to grow it. So yeah, I was really thankful for that. So that's kind of how.
So what's your official title now, though?
So my official title now is construction technologist. So we were looking. We were like, well, what do we call this thing? And so I actually emailed James Benham and said, hey, if you had a person at your company, doing this, what would you call him? And he was like, a construction technologist. And I really didn't like it at first, but we tried a couple other titles and it just didn't quite work or resonate or whatever. So I flipped back, and ever since then, it's just been, construction technologist. So.
Well, crazy enough, that's what kind of caught my eye when I was going through like some of the rosters of our first couple tech conferences and MEP Innovation meetings. I was like, wait, there's somebody actually has the title construction technologist. I've got to meet this guy. And it's one of those things that like legitimately caught my eye, and like it probably why I identified you 5-10 years ago. I was like, hey, this is somebody I just want to see what they're doing with their job. So with all that being said, what's kind of the scope of your job right now? Like, what does construction technologist mean at P1 Group? Because I don't know of a lot of people who've got that isolated title. So what does that mean for you guys?
I work with all of our different departments, look for technologies, it kind of changes, it kind of grows, it's just, you look for different opportunities. I've been working a lot lately with our fabrication shops lately. We've implemented Stratus about 3 or 4 years ago, and that's just opened up a ton of opportunities for us. I've worked a lot with our estimating departments and our other departments, our VDC departments and stuff like that. So, it's not that, we don't limit because we don't want to kill innovation from everyone else and say, oh, this is all on one person. There's a lot of people at our company that are doing a lot of cool things. A lot of guys in our VDC department doing HoloLens, and leading up that charge. All of our different departments, there's a lot of people that are doing a lot of different things. So I don't have sole control over all of that, but it's just looking for opportunities, looking for ways that we can integrate and build things. And actually, one of my passions has kind of become just developing software and developing integrations and even writing some code, and so it's just, and a lot of it too is even some help desk, as people have troubles with some of the software, some specific estimating problems, or with our estimating software, with our fabrication software, sometimes, it's just solving those problems instantly. Because that's one of my pet peeves is that, you really need someone at your company who's a real expert. And so I don't, we implement it, and then there's usually someone, that we try to train to take that on too, and have a second layer of being an expert in that software as well. So we don't have to rely upon the help desk of the other company, so we can solve those problems instantly for our users when they're using it. Because that's one of the most frustrating things when you're rolling out software and stuff like that at your company, is someone hits a roadblock, and then you got to submit a help desk ticket, and you don't get a call back for a day, and people, get real frustrated with that. And so we try to solve those problems instantly, and get those people back on their feet. So, and that's actually one of the things I saw too at the conference. We went and toured Dynamic Systems site, and they were doing that really well there too. They had right on their machines, the ability, and that was one of their things where if one of the users got down, they wanted that resolved within the hour, so that a person wouldn't be impacted by a problem they were having with a specific piece of software. So
yeah, they took it very seriously there.
Yeah, they did at DSI. And to kind of go back to that, Jeff, it was cool. At that point in time, I was on the other side there talking with James and talking with the team and formulating it. And the whole idea wasn't to stifle innovation, right? And I think it was thoughtfully. I don't know that we articulated it well, so I love to see that how you guys did it. But it was like, hey, if technology is going to be core to your business, then somebody has to overall be in charge of it from a champion perspective. It wasn't that no one else got to do it, but if the VDC person who you're talking about has this great idea off the side of their desk, but yet has to draw all day and has to do BIM and do all the VDC work, then is that real project ever going to get anywhere? And they're probably going to get upset about it, right? When it doesn't go anywhere, because it's like, well, you didn't invest in me. So you play that kind of human API to, hey, I have this idea, I have this thought. Can I go grab that? And hey, Jeff, can you run with this? Make sure it fits our stack, make sure it fits what we do. And then I get to see the ball rolling, right? That's sort of amplified probably how the innovations happened at P1 Group and what your experience is. At least that's what we were hoping for from this side.
Yeah, yeah. And it really does come down to having that dedicated person, because you're right. I mean, we all have our day jobs and other things that we're doing. If there's not that dedicated person to be able to run with those ideas, a lot of those ideas, they never get done, and that's really the crutch of it, is having that dedicated person. And I'm just really thankful that, our company, we decided to dedicate that person, and invest those resources to be able to take those ideas and to continue moving forward.
Yeah, we didn't tell anybody at that day and time, though, that you'd be running with those ideas right into a wall half the time, though, and having them not go anywhere. If we had told you that, you probably wouldn't have run into that wall. But we knew that was also part of the process, right? Having a VDC person fail in their day job's it's not recommended. But failing on running with, say the early implementation of automating your fab shop. Well, okay. Like we can do that. So, but I want to take that. I use the human API kind of,
it was a great segue.
Half jokingly as a great segue.
Chef's kiss.
Yes. Well, and there you go. There's another segue, Sean. Chef's kiss is all a little bit about drawing this all together. Is your talk at MEP Innovations that really drew Sean and I to have you on was all about APIs and construction, and you covered some of the basis and you covered some great analogies. So I kind of want to, I know we can't recap the whole thing, but I want to FOMO people. You missed out. Like I got to go and then I got to see this one in record as well. And it was fabulous on how you approached it. So give to the listeners listening in, because they hear the word API all the time, give a little bit of the basics and let's understand a little bit about how you at the P1 Group, but ultimately anybody at any contractor, anybody listening can use APIs to help amplify what they're doing.
The reason I love like APIs is because, the problem that we had 20 years ago when I first started is we just didn't have the software, right? We were still pushing a lot of paper. We still had, we were doing a lot of manual processes. And I know we're still doing a lot of manual processes today, but there's been a ton of innovations. There's a ton of opportunities out there, a ton of different softwares out there that can do all different parts of your business, manage your workforce, do your estimating, do your accounting, do your BDC. There's just tons. There's no shortage of opportunities. But the thing that is still like lacking is that, especially in our business, it takes so many different softwares to do our business. We're managing our workforce, we're estimating jobs, we're drawing, we're doing VDC. So we have all these different pieces of software in our stack. And you kept on thinking that, hey, there's going to be this one company or one suite of software, right? That's going to build this monolithic piece of application that's going to do every part of our business, where it's going to be really, really neat. All of our ERP information, all of our accounting information, all of our estimating information, all of our VDC information will all be neatly stacked in this singular database, and it will all be perfect, and we'll be able to run all kinds of cool analytics off of it. But the reality is that that's never happened. We have all these different pieces, and different companies get bought up by other companies and stuff like that. But I just never see, and there may be a company that may come out with that, but you may have to compromise where, they may not do estimating as well as you would like, if you're going to do that. And I don't want to see our departments, compromise like that. But that's the problem that I see that APIs solve, is that I don't have to go buy a monolithic piece of software to have all those pieces of software communicate to one another, or to bring all that data into the same location. Is that those APIs allow me to interface with all those different softwares and have them interface with each other too. And in a way, bring that stack together to bring it all together into one spot, even if it isn't a single piece of software where they can talk to one another. So, and basically, that's what an API is. We're so used to what a UPI or a user interface, where we're clicking on our mouse or whatever. But an API is a programming interface where a program can interface with another program, and these are built into the software so that you can do different functions within that software and pull information out of them.
Yeah, because otherwise, if you don't have an integrated tech stack, you just might as well be using paper. I mean, let's be real.
Right.
You might be more efficient, but you're not, without integrating all these different aspects of it, you're leaving these wide gaps in your operation and just huge areas of productivity loss between the two different pieces of what could be very efficient software.
So my question is, you had a little bit of a kind of an analogy, and I don't know that we can pull it off completely, but maybe you can give people an overall view of it so they can kind of understand if you're still going, okay, I kind of get what he's talking about. Can you give a little bit of that analogy, at least maybe give people enough to think about it?
Yeah. So the analogy that I've seen that really helped me click of what an API is and how it works is a restaurant analogy. And so, you have your customers that come into a restaurant and they want to consume like a nice meal. They want to get something to eat, right? Well, that's kind of like your external program. They want to come into the restaurant. The external program wants to come into the program. It wants to consume something, right? It wants to be able to get some information or put some information in. So you have the people that are sitting down at the restaurant. Well, then you have the cook, which is in the kitchen, which is like the database of your program, right? That has all the information, has all the ingredients, has all of your company's information, and does all your processes. Well, you need something to interface between the people in the restaurant sitting down at the restaurant that are wanting to have that nice meal and the database, and that's where your waiter comes in. That brings the menu, to the guy sitting down at the table and says, here's your menu. What is it that you would like to order? And so then the waiter, takes that order. He walks it back to the kitchen. He gives it to the cook. The cook puts it together. But then the waiter then takes that back to the people sitting down at the table and eating. And that's what the API is. The API is like that waiter. It goes to your external program or whatever it is. It asks, what is it that you want to get? Here's the menu of the things that you can order. And it then takes that order to the database or to the kitchen, and then the database prepares that order, and then gives it back to the waiter, which is the API, and then takes it back to that external program.
Right. The API is not doing the cooking, and you're still limited in terms of a menu,
right,
which is kind of one of the things I really want to kind of focus on. What do you think that people need to understand about the limitations and expectations when it comes to APIs and software? Because there's a blanket statement that I hear over and over again from sales software people that just basically like, oh, don't worry about it. We got an API for that.
Right.
And an API for that is not a blanket statement that can fix everything. There are limitations, but I think people need to kind of get that across. So what do you think that people need to be aware of, at least with some basic limitations on APIs in terms of what it can do?
Well, and that was kind of the reasoning why I wanted to do the session at the conference was because, when I first started, it was like, okay, I just need to check and see if a program has an API. And that was one, as I was looking at programs, it's like, hey, do you guys got an open API? Sure, yeah, we got an open API. They checked that box. But, as I started building the integrations between different programs and started really working with APIs, it's just not all APIs are created equal. There's a lot of differences between them. And the key thing is that you're limited to what is built into that API. You can only make the request and the calls and get the information and put the information in that was actually built into that API. So it's really important to read the documentation and to look at it and see, okay, what is that information that I can get out of that API, and make sure, when you're looking at that software, that you're not just saying, hey, you have an open API. It's like, well, what is it that you're going to want to get out of there? How can you kind of investigate that even early on to make sure that the information and what you're wanting to do, you can get it through their API. And that was kind of the heart for the session, was to help people and educate people that, you don't have to be a developer to really dig into APIs. It can seem like really intimidating, but there's a lot of tools out there now that, even make non-developers to be able to experiment and work with APIs, even if you don't know any code, so that you can see the information, jog those ideas, and come up with those ideas of how you want those programs to interact and how you want to bring that information together.
So now we want to talk a little bit more about, so that's kind of the basics, the limitations, what it can do, what it can be limited by, but let's talk about the positive side of it. what can you do with it, and how can, you know, maybe even give us a couple of examples of how you can leverage it as an organization to drive even more out of what you currently have.
Can I have a request on this one here too? Can you talk about how you're digitizing your fab shop? Because fab shops have been, for years and years and years, paper-based operations. You might have a VDC department that's spooling up everything and drawing it out, but there's always been that air gap. How are you kind of bridging that gap with some of the APIs from the different softwares that can be used on the fab shop floor and within your VDC department?
Yeah. So, that's actually where we found a lot of success with APIs is in our fab shops. We implemented Stratus probably about 3 years ago now, and we've gone through we've gone from a paper-based process to now where everything is digitized in our piping and plumbing shops. And we're tracking everything through Stratus. Our guys are working off the screens, working directly off the model. And it's been a game changer for us. I mean, our guys, that's actually been one of the easiest softwares to implement, because the guys just really love having all that information and being able to access that model, being able to see it, being able to have their questions answered instantly, basically, when they do have questions sometimes they're fabricating, and then we're able to track things off of it. But one of the cool things about Stratus is that they do have a really robust API. But not only do they have a robust API, but they also have an ability where a non-programmer, or even someone who may not be a developer, can actually interface with that API and make some calls, some example calls, and pull that information out of there to see what that information looks like. And so, one of the things is that, sometimes there's some metrics and stuff like that you want to pull out of your fab shop that you can get through some reports, but it's actually a lot easier to just bring all that information into like an analytics suite and then run some business analysis against those things. And that's one of the strongest use cases I see for APIs, is being able to pull information from all your different softwares and bring it into a central location like a business analytics suite, build some dashboards, and really analyze your data from all the different parts of your business, from your project management, from your estimating, from your fab shops, from your accounting, bringing that all in together in one place and then running some analytics with it. And that's one of the wonderful things that APIs can do, is bring all that information together.
Yeah, I think one of the key areas there, though, is, by being able to connect that stuff out, even just as a simple progress update. Now the guys in the field know exactly where we are. They're not calling the fab shop 3 times a day, hounding the fab shop foreman. Where are we with this piece of equipment? Where are we with this? Everybody along the way knows where people are, and they're not all siloed out. It's a really good way of integrating all areas of your operation so that you can actually get some of those questions answered early. Jeff, you were going to kind of pile on there too. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh no, that's all right. That's all right. I wanted to add in there too that there's a nuance to what you're talking about that honestly, Jeff, I think gets lost in the translation, because you say, oh, when you can get all this information in one place. It's very specific information. So you're leaving your photos where your photos are. You're leaving your model where your model is. So like to Sean's point, all I'm getting is the progress information that's going, because transporting all of that, there was that one ring to rule them all doesn't exist. Because if you think about, from a database perspective, housing your accounting information, your photos, your 3D, all of these things, and imagine the size of that thing and the dangerous. So what you're talking about is just porting the critical pieces of information that I need to a central location. Right. So like that's, and I think that's where your menu analogy to me, because what I think people think is, oh, I walk in and I'm like Gordon Ramsay that's going to check the place out. Give me one of everything from the left-hand side of the menu and I'll be good. No, that's not how you do it. You have an appetite for what you want to eat. You order it from your server. That's what you get. That's what you eat, because that's what you need. And that's the critical component of APIs, bringing together really important information to drive some sort of business insight. And that's where I wanted to take you next too, Jeff, was you've got that fab to field, right? You've got that model to fab, and you've got it in analytics now, and you're starting to look at it. What are some of the business insights? If like you're a project executive listening right now, or you're, CEO of a smaller shop, what are some of the insights you've found where the company's gone, Wait a minute. We did not know that.
One of the things that's really helped us out on is being able to narrow down our production factors, being able to refine our estimates, moving forward, where we can bring our estimate data and also, our actual model data and also our figures from the field on how our crews did, being able to analyze all that information in one place and then being able to refine those production rates for estimating moving forward to make our hit ratios on our jobs better. We've been able to make our jobs a lot more accurate through analyzing that data and bringing all that data together in one place.
That's awesome. That's got to make your customers happy because predictability is like the number one thing we need. So now you have the round trip of information so you can really be predictable around, hey, this is the time frame. Can I, and what does the production rate say it's going to take to get there?
Yeah.
Awesome. Sean?
I just had a kind of a question. We had a debate going on yesterday with one of our software vendors, and the question that we kind of had is, as you start building out more APIs, do you feel like you're more likely to kind of like, is it sticky? Does it make you kind of stick with the software, or do you think like it by building more, you understand some of the implementation possibilities that you might be looking for within other softwares? Which way do you kind of lean? Do you think you're more likely to stay with the software that you build more API integrations with, or look for something that you want to do it like more perfectly with?
I think it definitely makes you more sticky with that software because, one of the things I've seen is now that I've explained, especially to our guys in the shop, about an API, now they understand what APIs are and they realize that honestly, the possibilities are endless now because they realize like, hey, they come up with ideas like, what if we could do this? And sometimes those specific business processes are really specific to your business. And so like I may go talk to Stratus and say, hey, this is our idea, but they're not going to want to build it into their software because it's really specific to P1, and it's not going to serve all their other customers too. But that process really enhances our productivity. So now through an API, we can actually, that's the other benefit of an API, is not only just being able to bring all that information in one place, but to develop on top of it some of those specific use cases for your business. And so an example at our company was, we had a specific way that we wanted to order our material, the way that we handled our material in our shop. It was, a real special sauce for P1. And, we went to Stratus and said, hey, this is our idea. This is what we'd like to do. But they didn't really jump on that idea because it was really specific to P1 and it wouldn't necessarily help their other customers and really drive their software adoption. But because they had an open API, we were able to actually build out that process just ourselves in-house. And once our guys in the shop saw that we could build that up, then they keep on coming up with more and more ideas like, well, what if we could do this? What if we could do that? Well, we have that base software. Like we don't want to go out and just build a software to manage our company from the ground up. I mean, that would just take a lot of investment, a lot of time and everything else. But if I can find that one piece of software that's going to do 85% of what it is that I want to do, if they have a great API, then I can build out that other 15%, really easily on top of that to do the rest of those specific business processes that we want to do. And that's one of the things I love doing in APIs. It's just a ton of fun, working with those guys and working with their ideas and building on top of other softwares, those specific business processes.
It's a great answer, Jeff. And I'm going to actually, Sean, jump in here on my side of things, knowing my background in software and development. What I find the use of APIs by customers like that is a challenge to the organization to continue to listen to our customers to determine if it's, P1 group specific, or if I'm all of a sudden starting to draw comparisons together amongst something that can help all of my customers and make me continue to add things into the core software itself to support the innovation of my customers. One of the things that happens too often, and I'm pretty sure anybody listening can look on their technology stack shelf right now and find softwares that, just kind of hung it up like, hey, we got a bunch of people, we win. And then y'all found ways to integrate, move, and eventually they don't have you by the boat anchor anymore because you have that capability to choose. So I think this is a challenge to the industry, especially given modern SaaS. I mean, it's one of the things around modern SaaS that is what it is. We consistently have to earn our customers year over year because you have the ability to leave. So to me, Sean, the answer to that question is it can be sticky if you're a great company. It can be bad if you're not. So challenge accepted, I hope, from the software side of things, because most of the groups that I know, I'm not sure who you were talking to yesterday, but I'm pretty sure most of the people we talk to are continuing to innovate and move the software forward. On that note, Jeff, the interesting thing I would like to look forward to is like, you're really focusing on integrations. You're focusing on those tech stacks, but what are you focusing on in the next, say year, and maybe something you came out of MEP Innovations thinking about that maybe P1 Group or mechanical or the MEP trade in general needs to think about in 2023?
One of the things that I really liked in the MEP Innovations was Jonathan Marsh's presentation on mapping your tech stack, like understanding all your different pieces of tech that you're doing and how they integrate. And, I think, refining that tech stack, looking at what it is that you have in your company, where you can improve it, where you can integrate those. He had a really great presentation of like how to outline those and the different jobs that those pieces of tech do, And so it's not necessarily about like, hey, where can I go find the next shiny object and the better piece of software or whatever, but it's how can I make those operations even better with what I have, and how can I continue to integrate them and continue to refine them, continue to make those business processes smoother, make them more automated. And I thought he had a great presentation about, really looking at all of those and looking at different jobs and just taking a step back and look and analyzing all of that.
If you've seen some of those tech audits that he does for companies, they can be brutally messy. 5 people, they're like project managers that like fell in love with this one software and they're the only one who uses it, but it's the exact same software purpose that somebody else has, or we've got a license for the enterprise version. And it's like having to take away some of those beloved toys from people that just to get the job done. It can be a tough experience, but it's so necessary, Brad. Like Jeff Sample, you probably see this all the time, like convincing people to give up their favorite toys, but just to streamline things so that everybody gets on the same page operationally is so vital.
It's so vital, but it is you're really taking away what they consider their critical toy. So that's part of having someone like Jeff, because a lot of the companies I went to where we did that, you didn't have that. And so there was, you'd consult and then you'd leave and it wouldn't happen. And so It's kind of like, teaching my kids to get rid of a few things and grow up. Like I had to continually take it away. Jeff's got to be there to continue to do that process. The biggest thing out of Jonathan's that I got was looking at your technology like a human.
Yes.
That was good.
Is that not one of the most innovative things
sometimes you got to fire that human.
Sometimes that human's no good.
Sometimes that human's no good. Sometimes you got to fire it. You never talked about giving it a raise or anything like that, but sometimes you got to fire your tech.
Yeah.
And really just articulating it as a human. And like, you wouldn't walk into your fab shop and have 4 people that do the exact same thing, just fighting over one stream. If you got 4 people and you've got enough for those 4 people, that's different. But you'd be like, all right, guys, 3 of you either need to go do something else or, we don't need you anymore. It's a duplication, triplication. And we see that. So talking about it as a human was really interesting.
Yeah, rolling him out like an intern too, right? Like Denise said, sometimes you got to give him a test drive.
Yeah,
not sure if you want to be a full-time employee, that kind of stuff. It's really great. I love that. I love that talk.
I did too. And so I want to take this into MEP Innovations because that's kind of where the genesis of the 3 of us sitting down was. And Jeff, you had some really interesting pre-call thoughts on MEP Innovation and what it means to you and what it has meant to you over the years. So I kind of want to get your perspective, kind of like a FOMO recap, looking forward, don't miss out in the future.
Yeah, MEP Innovations is really special, and it continues to change and to innovate too, and it gets better every year. But I mean, like I was sharing when I transferred into this position, a construction technologist, because of some of the things Sean sent out and starting to partner with JB Knowledge. I actually missed the innovations conference that year, and I was really bummed. And I was waiting for it to come back, and I finally went to it that next year. But I've been to a lot of conferences, and I kind of started buying away from conferences because they all seem kind of very similar, and I never got a ton out of them. But when I went to the MEP Innovations, it just was just amazing, because it was so, the sessions were so practical. But it wasn't just the sessions; it was the people there. There's just some amazing
It's nerds
people
like
there,
us.
and and it's not just the people that are there, but it's the culture. The culture that's at this conference is unlike any other conference that you've been to. People are extremely friendly, willing to collaborate. People just sitting around sharing ideas. And there's just a lot of really smart people there too, that are just doing some really cool, innovative stuff and they don't have chips on their shoulder about it either. That you'll just be hearing something, you're like, wow, that is really impressive, and it's the friendships that I've built there over the years. And this year was just really amazing too, because there's just some really, really amazing people there. And it's really just helped, drive, my role forward and continue. Every year I go there, I'm just challenged more and more by what other companies are doing, some of the ideas that they have, and it just continues to drive that board forward. And it's gotten better even now that we're not just MCA doing it, we're doing it with NECA, we're doing it with SMACNA, and the culture hasn't changed. It's just only gotten better. And and not just even that. We have fun. It's not like we're just sitting around, geeking out and stuff like that. We're having fun. We play Price is Right.
Work. Jeff, stop ruining it, Jeff. It's all work. It's all work. Stop. Shh.
But
you're going to really ruin it for some people here.
We actually brought Dumb and Dumber in, and played Price is Right, and had Jake Olson and Kirk Reimer up there on stage. And that was a blast, being able to, just play Price is Right and with everybody and have fun. And then just even the really practical lean workshops. Charlie Dunn, he just put on an amazing, really, really practical workshop. It's like not someone up there, just preaching at you on stage, but you're actually working through these lean concepts and some things in some ways that just really just hit home. It really is unlike any conference that I've been to. And I hope more people will come, because it just continues to get better every year.
Well, speaking about the culture, the awesome part about this is we started this, was it 2015, 2016? But back then it was only MCIA. But that culture was pretty much there from the jump, in that everybody was looking to share. And a lot of that came from contractors. Most of the programming is contractors sharing their own case studies. So, I think the very first one we did, we had a couple futurists who were talking about the next generation of building. And everybody walked away with this like, well, that's great if you're building in Dubai or something like that. But we're not doing that. Like, you have any of these projects in Philly that I can work on, that I can get some experience on? And so we immediately retargeted as like, no, this has to be all practical education. This has to be like case studies of contractors actually doing it to share with it. And then since then, every single time we've had this culture of like, we're going to show you the real truth of it. And one of my favorite sessions this last time was actually Ryan Hoggetts from UMC, where it's like, I think we had to modify the title a couple times because it had too many expletives in it, but it ended up being called like Mistakes Were Made. But he talked about all the things he did wrong and not necessarily the things he did right, which is something that you don't get almost anywhere else. But to be really clear, when we did join up with SMACNA and NECA, they jumped in with 2 feet, and I can't state that enough times. They did a great job of kind of owning this with us. So it's not just one dimensional here in one side of the industry. It's really all three organizations coming together to produce this. And the culture has still stayed that sharing case study based culture, I think, across the board.
That's the part that surprises me, Sean, is that, I've known it since its earliest stages. You're right. It sort of just had that special sauce from the beginning as a culture. And then I'll be honest, you mixed the groups together during COVID was the first one. And even then it felt good. Like, obviously it was awkward because it was COVID and we were trying to do it and y'all did your best to do it.
Talk about that.
I know, but hey, you guys worked really hard.
It was great turnout, but it's just, it's really hard to keep that culture in a virtual environment. It's really tough to get through it.
But it could have been the moment that it collapsed as well. And then we could have come together physically the next year and had it just not be what it was. And Jeff, as an attendee as well, I'd say it's gotten better every year. It really was. It became the power of the three major trades that took it over, and that just amplified it. And there was, I feel like there's little special sauce from each of them that really mixed well together. Not to continually go restaurant, but like, I think Tahira, Mark, and Sean, those are the three behind making it happen, really worked together as chefs, married their recipes together and took their own special sauce and made some new dish that keeps on giving. So kudos to everybody for doing that. And Jeff, you and I just get to enjoy it, right?
Yeah, we get it.
No, I make Jeff work it. Actually, I make both you work at it this year, so it's not like you just get to enjoy it. It's
all work, Sean. It's all work, isn't it?
It is.
Right?
It's all presentations and workshops. I get it, but like I said, it's one of those things where it's a tremendous amount of coordination to make it happen, but it is so rewarding when it kind of gets through there.
Yeah. Right, Jeff? If you love your job, you don't work a day in your life. And I don't ever feel like I work a minute at an MEP Innovation, and then I turn around and leave.
I'm not sure you actually worked a full minute at MEP Innovation this year, Sample.
Hey, wait a minute. Somebody had to run around and wrangle Charlie Dunn. Come on.
That's a good point.
Nathan and I deserve it. Well, it also took 9 other people.
It was a full corral. Like there was a lot of rodeo clowns and everything going on. Kylo Ren made an appearance. It's a bit of a blur. But the crazy part about that is I had more than a couple contractors say that was the best workshop that they've ever attended.
It was amazing. It was really a great workshop.
And it was a lot of like the practical, like the immediate, like there were so many immediate ahas in this. And I'll give credit where credit's due. That was a GC who came in and gave the best presentation of our conference, which doesn't really happen. We usually limited to all the MEP subcontractors there, and a GC came in and just crushed it.
Yeah, and that's a thanks to all three of you, Nika, Smackna, and MCAA, for taking a risk on that and knowing that the first ever anti-keynote happened at your conference. And to cross-pollinate another podcast, if you want to hear all about it, kind of like we dug into Jeff Peterson's API talk here today on this show, check out the Construction Dorks. We did a recap and we really dug deep into what the anti-keynote was. So thanks. Listen, guys, we could go on forever. Jeff, I want to give you a minute. If anybody wants to connect with you, if they want to connect with P1 Group, where should they go? How can they do that?
The easiest way to connect with me is on LinkedIn. That's where I'm the most active. So you can look me up on LinkedIn and throw me out a connect request. You can also email me as well at jeff.peterson@p1group.com. But I'd love to connect with you.
I think it's great. Sean, thank you for having Jeff on and coming up with the idea and bringing him on with us. It's been a whole lot of fun, and I suggest you follow Jeff Peterson on LinkedIn as well. I do, and I learn a lot from him, and we have a lot of spirited debate out there. So it's not all sunshine and roses. We always have some good debate. So Sean McGuire, thanks for coming on today and sitting in that co-host seat with me.
Happy to be here.
I hope we can get you on a few more times in the future to be a co-host. It is kind of fun.
Love to do it. I'd love to actually have more contractors kind of be here too, because I think it adds a lot of real practical depth to the conversation. I
think you're right. I think in 2023 for us here at the ConTech crew, it is all about bringing more contractors on, bringing more of the people like Jeff who are actually the rubber hitting the road, doing the things out there in the field, because it's fun to pontificate on a microphone, but it's a heck of a lot better if we see it getting done in the field. And with that, I want to thank you all for tuning in today to geek out for our interview with Jeff Peterson. To read all our news stories, to learn more about apps, workflows, and hardware, and to listen to this show, visit thecontechcrew.com. This is the ConTech Crew signing out. Until next time, enjoy the ride and geek out.